I attended a One Piece regional championship earlier today, and I made an unassuming tweet in the day just for something funny I heard. So I'm not the best at the One Piece trading card game, but I love the IP. And I managed to fall out of the bottom tables pretty early on because that's kind of what I do. And so I heard some really fun conversations, which I made a pretty cool tweet about, or pretty funny tweet of people just saying, "Oh, I switched over from Pokemon. It got way too expensive. It's really unfair to get a World Championship invite." I thought that was just a little bit of a funny thing. But then it sparked a lot of discussion, a lot of people coming in, a lot of people talking about it. And so I decided let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons of both trading card games, what they do, and what really an invite constitutes in either game. My name is Rahul. I'm a competitive Pokemon TCG player. I've been playing for almost 15 years. I've been reading One Piece for even longer. So I'm just a super nerd if you guys want to call me that. Today I thought this video would be a little bit of a fun diversion from my usual content that I do on the channel. Um, and I think it'd just be a little bit of fun to talk about this as a topic. So, for those of you who don't know, the One Piece trading card game is run by Bandai. It has been now, I think, about 3 years since its release. We're on set 13, so a little bit over 3 years would be the timeline here. And then Pokemon has been run by Wizards into Nintendo, and now it's been going for literally forever, since 1999, I believe. So it's been going forever. Now, both games have a blueprint on how to do things, right? So we'll start at the very base level. Is each game expensive to play? At the base level, just like a local level, do you want to just go to your locals? You want to play some fun games, fun decks? Pokemon is cheaper, pound for pound. If you just want to go buy a deck, go to your locals weekly and just have a good time. Pokemon is hands down cheap, the cheapest game by far of any trading card game because you can pick up a competitive Pokemon TCG deck for less than 60, $70. And the caveat too is a lot of those staples that you pick up can go into other decks. So you're basically just buying maybe like a $15 to $30 core to replace the extra stuff that you already have. So for $200, $300, you have a competitively viable deck. Not just one competitively viable deck, but multiple competitively viable decks that you can take to regionals, to tournaments, whatever. Now, One Piece on the flip side has a very predatory secondary market, I feel like, where certain cards just spike as soon as they become slightly playable, and decks end up getting closer to that $300, $400 mark, depending on the deck you want to play. Obviously, there are alt arts that are very expensive, and the base rarities are usually pretty fine. But then you get those like random commons and uncommons that are pretty difficult to find in like a theme deck that they only come out in, or only a sealed product. But One Piece does a fantastic job of releasing a set called PRB, Premium the Best. And this set basically, sorry, there was a fly in my room. Basically, it's one of those sets that is dedicated to putting out reprints and mitigating the secondary market. However, this happens maybe once a year, and in that situation, it doesn't actually alleviate too much when it happens that infrequently. Pokemon also does this now with the Prismatic Evolution set and what's potentially going to be our Mega Dream EX set, but the Pokemon secondary market is already one of the lowest by far simply because all the people who are chasing the collectors or whatever are chasing the high end, high rarity cards, meaning everything in below and lower full arts, half arts, just your basic rarities become super cheap to play. So at the core level, I want to just talk deck pound for pound, deck for deck. Pokemon is cheaper. Don't get that twisted. Now, when you want to account for the discussion of my earlier tweet was how to get to a world championship invite. Now, I think that's a little bit unfair for One Piece if we're going to qualify that metric because for One Piece, only like 4 players from North America qualify to the World Championships. It's one of the most exclusive, smallest affairs that Bandai runs. I think it's sub 40 players. I don't know the exact number from most of the Asia Pacific region, as well as America and Europe and Latin America. But I think only one LATAM player got sent as well last year. So it's one of those where it's incredibly difficult to qualify for the World Championships. So I think that's just not a feasible comparison as a metric. So we're going to use the national championships or Bandai Card Fest specifically. Now, Bandai has 2 tournaments a year, 2 Bandai Card Fests a year right now in North America that are invite only. I think every other region for the most part is open and you can just choose to play them if you want to. For NA specifically, it is invite only. What does that mean? Very simply put, every other tournament that you want to play in the Bandai circuit, you can play. You can just sign up, you can play. Same with Pokemon and the Pokemon circuit, you can play. But specifically for Bandai Card Fest and the Pokemon World Championships, you need to earn an invitation. How can you earn an invitation? Now, there are a myriad of tournament levels that you can play. Um, One Piece does online tournaments, online regionals, online treasure cups, which are really cool. Now, those are a fantastic way to mitigate cost. You can just have your deck, you put up your webcam like I'm doing right now. I would just tilt it down, have my desk. I would play some games with my opponents, have a great time, submit my stuff, and everything is good and dandy. Now the problem there is there's a lot of cheating in online regionals specifically and treasure cups, and it's just very difficult to police and mitigate. So every single time I feel like I hear a story or see a story, especially the more and more ridiculous ones have popped up. But it's just one of those things where it's very difficult to police, and it's just something that when the stakes get higher, it gets a lot more difficult. Now, if you want to talk about the stakes, that's one thing I should probably talk about before I move into the tournaments itself, is the prizing. One Piece deals with prize cards specifically. There's never any cash given out. Now, these prize cards are worth quite a lot of money, depending on how you finish. There's cards called serial cards, which are individually numbered, and each year they change. And those individual serial number cards can, go upwards of $10,000 depending on what the cereal is. Like the cereal Luffy's are currently selling for above $10,000, and the only way you can get those is top eight regional, win a treasure cup, perform well at some of those events. So they're very exclusive, and there's a lot of like high end, high art promo cards that are printed that One Piece and Bandai do a phenomenal job drawing the interest of players. Simply putting like what is a 64-man locals where the top four all get this promo card, or the winner gets this promo card. Just a phenomenal way to get local players invested in competing in these small level events that feel rewarding, that you can win a couple $100 just for basically showing up. Obviously, moving the cards is a little more difficult, but that's a different like layer of it. The value of the card still exists, and that's as simple as that. Pokemon, on the other hand, at local level events, you can get like booster packs and a playmat for winning a League Cup. Now that is where a big fallacy falls in, or like not the fallacy, but like a problem in the endemic problem in Pokemon is that League Cups are abused by stores. Now, what I mean by that is that League Cups are fully run by stores, just like a lot of this Bandai stuff is run by stores as well. But Bandai already provides adequate pricing to these stores to hand out to these players. So these top four cards or whatever is adequately being handed out. Pokemon gives them one League Cup mat and says, hey, have fun. The other pricing is on you, which leads to stores being super predatory, super unfair to their player base and their local base, which then causes some issues and problems down the line. It's something that I have always had gripes with and something that I think needs to be fixed from the Pokemon side. Simply send them a standardized kit to hand out as pricing, or simply have some guidelines for if you are charging this much, this should be kind of what you are expected to get in return. And Pokemon does these prize pack things just like Bandai has their little event packs. Event packs have like one or few cards coming in, whatever. But the prize packs are really cool because it's also playable reprints packed into a set that are cool and like have a little stamp on them. So Bandai does the same thing, just a much smaller pool of cards, and sometimes it's not reprints; it's just individually new cards that could be playable. So Pokemon has a leg up on prize packs, but again, using them as supplementary pricing does not count. So that's you have the stakes now. You see that Pokemon has money on the line, and One Piece does not, just prize cards. And with just prize cards, there's a lot of cheating. So just imagine how much cheating there would be if there was um, online regional play. Now, there is a client for Pokemon that could solve this issue. However, it's not a good client. If you guys play the Pokemon TCG Live, it is a serviceable client. It gets the job done, but it does not quantify or basically allow us to compete in online regionals. Now, One Piece has an unofficial sim that a lot of players play on and a lot of players use to practice. Now, this unofficial sim has no bearing on the official competitive nature. I believe it's just a couple dudes or just one guy who codes it and runs it, which is a huge service to the community. And if it ever got shut down, I think it would cause a lot of damage to the game specifically. So, that being said, how do you qualify? Now, One Piece, depending on the regional, top 16 or top 32 can qualify you for a Nationals invite. This is a Bandai Cardfest invite. Um, Very cool. There are pass downs, which is huge. And Pokemon is just top 135 North America, and a couple other regions, obviously, if you're a part of a different region. But it's a very small World Championship affair. The World Championships is still pretty large. It's like 700 something players, but it is a very select elite group. And the question is it too expensive? I mean, probably if you're going to choose to travel and get your championship points. That bar being constantly moving is something that is very difficult for players to gauge, especially when you're dedicating thousands of dollars to travel to different countries, or not countries, just within your country and compete in regionals. A regional weekend is no longer becoming cheap. Air travel has gotten something of a luxury at this point. Long gone are the days of like Spirit and Frontier flights for sub $100. Minimum, you're paying $200 to $300 to go anywhere, even if it is a short flight away. This adds up, especially when you're getting hotel, food, all that stuff, even if you're sharing with a bunch of other people. And I'm going to be talking from the perspective of someone who does share with hotel rooms and stuff with other people, especially in those scenarios. So when you want to qualify for the World Championships, not only do you have to go to these events, you have to perform. And if you want to perform, you have to put a lot of effort in, which then requires coaching, Medify. There's a lot of free content out there to absorb, but it's not always the best content. And so that leads to some additional charges. So that I will say it is an expensive endeavor, but then you flip over to the One Piece side. This is where I think the game does a phenomenal job of kind of layering in more additional rewards at the lower levels. When you go to a store treasure cup, which is basically the equivalent of like a Pokemon League Cup that can only be held once in a block or whatever, the top four or top two or whatever, depending on your attendance, get an invitation to the national championships. There was something really cool they did called Pirate League, which was the equivalent of Pokemon's Team Challenge. This Pirate League had players compete in just like basically what is a similar to a League Cup, just everyone plays, competes their X number of Swiss rounds. There's no top cut, and the top three finishers become the captains. Then there's 10 substitutes, and these players all get the prizing for going and competing at nationals in what is a glorified side event. A very cool glorified side event. Bandai is one upping Pokemon on side events right now because right now we have things like raid battles, whatever, but it's not doing the greatest job of getting players to go from your local community to regional championships. It is getting players who are already at the regional championships an opportunity to compete in these fun side events, which is fine if that's Pokemon's intention. Um, so stakes, everything's on the line. That's one of the ways you can qualify from One Piece. You can get those points, or not points. You can get that invite just directly from doing that, which is the coveted spot that everyone wants. You have to do either the regionals online or in person. There are offline regionals as well. Bandai has a pretty big problem with just going to the same locations over and over again because it's the same organizers. So we end up in Peoria, which Pokemon players know that is not the most fun location. I guess One Piece players you also know it's not the most fun location. There is Kissimmee, there is Los Angeles, there is Toronto. There's a couple other regional locations I'm missing, but they just basically cycle the same ones over and over again each quarter. And while One Piece sometimes uses Arcanine, the problem is One Piece organizers are very scattered. Everyone is their own organizer. So that's the problem right now that the game has to fix, where every organizer has their own way of doing things. And signing up becomes a massive problem. So that becomes a huge issue where it's just like, what do I do? How do I sign up? Now I have to download all these different apps, try to navigate through these different things like Eventbrite, Ticketmaster, like I don't know, Tixer, like all these things that you have to basically just like learn what they do. And Arcanine is such a streamlined process that I think everyone should be using it. And they do work with One Piece in some capacity as well. So, just why not implement it to the rest of their tournaments? Pokemon, fortunately, we have a very streamlined process of how I want to do all those things and have a great time. Now, the big thing I want to discuss towards the end of this is event quality. If you go to a Bandai event, there is nothing short of a nightmare. Every Bandai event I have personally been to has been a complete nightmare where things have run slow. We are always packed in rooms like sardines. The pricing at the end is always a nightmare where we're just getting vocally told to be standing in lines to go pick up our pricing. That's not really the best in Pokemon right now either because everyone's getting pricing. But it's one of those things where it's like you're paying for your experience effectively, and Bandai is still a pretty young company and a young game, but they need more staff. They need better venues. They need to just basically fix the in between round time, just start moving stuff faster. Online reporting does help the game quite a bit because there's like a hard dead stop to certain time rounds, and you can move from there. Now, Pokemon right now does not do online reporting, but there was a couple of League Cups and a day two of the Milwaukee Regional Championships where this was dummy tested to see how it would move. And I think it did make the tournament significantly more efficient. Now, once that gets implemented into the Pokemon system, as well as the current, our staff is phenomenal. We are moving at breakneck speeds. We are getting out of regionals with 9 rounds, best of 3 in very efficient manner by 6:37. Today, we played best of 1 rounds at the One Piece Regional, and it was 9 rounds or until there's one undefeated. Again, a very annoying rule. And best of 1, by the way. So you have no chance to, learn throughout the matchup. You have no chance to like if it's an impactful matchup on the die roll, the coin flip, whatever you want to call it, it can just completely doom you. So best of 1 is just another product of something that I personally don't like. But best of 3 is significantly better. They just can't do it. And today we got out at like 5:30, and so a Pokemon tournament that would start roughly at the same time, getting out at 6:30 with 9 rounds, best of 3, and this getting out at about 5:30 with only best of 1 rounds. It's a little bit disheartening, especially when you go to these tournaments. There's so much downtime in between stuff. Now the vendor situation is kind of a nightmare at One Piece Regionals. You're not finding any fun stuff. You're just finding cards. Pokemon Regionals have a lot more to do on that end as well. But the main point of the topic we were talking about, like I said, was is it too expensive? Now here, Sinbad says here, okay, this is as crazy as it sounds. For Pokemon, you have to travel to many ICs and regionals to get your CP invite. For OP, you just have to go to a store qualifier or a state, and you can play at a tournament to qualify for Nats. You probably won't, but it's cheaper, which I think is fair, right? Like if the idea of you having to travel to all these locations becomes something that's very daunting, you won't do it. You won't qualify for Worlds. You're going to tap out early, which is what I was probably hearing from some of these players. Also, a very funny side note: none of these players recognize who I was. Really, really funny because I was just basically being like, "Oh, it's really that expensive, huh? Like, what makes it so expensive?" I was trying to start trouble for fun. I thought it was just really funny to see if like they would like recognize me or like just at any point be like, Rahul, what are you doing here? Which no one did, which was so awesome. So I was able to like basically rage bait some people, which was kind of cool. But Sinbad makes a great point. The idea of you being able to go to a League Cup and then further qualify for something, you're probably not going to do it. Like there was a point in the World Championship system where if you won 8 League Cups and 8 challenges, you could qualify for the World Championship. Could you do it? Yes. Did anyone do it? Probably not. I think like one person did. I think it was Caleb Gettimer one year, but besides that, like, but he had a Worlds invite for other reasons. So, um, yeah, but travel entry and is much higher for Pokemon for sure. It's way, way higher. I'll give them that. They get packs for entry. We don't get that. We get a playmat and a promo. So their entry blows us out of the water. One Piece gets 6 packs, an event pack, or 2 event packs, or like whatever, and like 2 other little packs. And like those fun little packs just need to be incorporated in Pokemon too. Like we have prize packs right now, but those fun regional packs could be so much cooler if you get like a regional stamped card of some sort. It doesn't have to be Pokemon. It can just be supporters, but you can pick from the supporters that we currently have. Like right now, Lily's Determination is our promo. You can make that Dawn or something. Like a pack of like Dawn, Grimsley, Fire Breather. And like obviously everyone wants Dawn. So it gives people a little bit of a Gamba aspect where they're like, I want to trade, I want to figure things out. This is also not true. I'm gonna respond to this guy right now. They are $80, my friend. Smiley face. You guys can see my real-time rage baiting. Yeah, see, cards in Pokemon are cheaper, but he's not wrong. Pokemon Jones is $80 of all or nothing. At least with One Piece, you pay $34, get cool promos, sell your money back. See, the promo incentive is what the players are missing right now. Like, that is what is actually a key aspect. And I agree with these points. I actually completely agree with the fact that One Piece, you can make your money back. You always feel like you're breaking even when you go to these tournaments and getting a full experience. With Pokemon, a playmat and a promo doesn't really cut it, especially when we're giving $80 to go to these. And sometimes the promos aren't even, or the playmats and promos aren't even the newest ones, which makes people even more upset. So, yeah, it's one of those things. Um, lot of other good points here. The constant travel and stuff. If you guys also want to see my my breakdown of my full season, I did talk about it. If you guys are curious, coming over from One Piece, or you're a Pokemon player is wondering what does it actually take to compete as a pro Pokemon player, I actually broke that down completely last year. My whole breakdown. I'll have a link to it in the description in the comments. I'll put it in the comments so you guys can click it, and it's a fun watch. I break down everything that I do monetarily. It's one of those things where I go above and beyond, way past my World's invite to do a lot of really fun, stupid stuff. So you guys can exclude some of that too. So it's a lot of fun to talk about. But I think everyone's points are really valid. Getting a World Championship invite in Pokemon is very expensive. It is a luxury hobby that you have to travel for. And One Piece is not cheaper because the game is very expensive to play. But there is the idea that you can always break even. There are these promo cards that help you get there. And the idea of being able to qualify for your bigger events from the local side is a very cool concept that I think needs to be absorbed by other games like Pokemon. So, who's really right? Who's really wrong? You guys let me know in the comments what you think. I think it'd be a lot of fun to keep hearing your discussion. This has been a very fun thing for me to read personally because I agree with a lot of these points. Like I'm an economist by degree. I think it's really fun to like listen to these and think about these things. It's a really cool hypothetical situation where like no one's actually getting hurt and we shouldn't be like no one flame each other. Like no one don't do that. That's like don't be mean. But besides that, it's a lot of fun. Hope you guys enjoy this fun little video. We can do more thought experiments and like conversations like this. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But I hope you guys like and subscribe. Please, peace out.